Hi everyone, this is Tara Keffer of The Business of Balance, the place where women and especially moms come to find more balanced, joyful, and fulfilled lives through life and career coaching, yoga, and essential oils. So this is my Free Friday coaching video series, and today I wanted to talk a little bit about perfectionism. And I myself am a huge perfectionist, always have been. Even though I'm working on it, I'm sure I always will be in some way. And I was thinking about perfectionism and how when I have been on job interviews in the past, they always ask your strengths and weaknesses. And I think when I was in college and I get asked that question, for the weakness, I would often say, well, I'm a perfectionist, so it often takes me longer to do things sometimes because I'm very thorough. And it seems like kind of a cop-out, right? Like, oh, I'm so perfect, it's a weakness. But in reality, being a perfectionist can be a really kind of paralyzing weakness. And I didn't really realize that until more recently. And it's interesting because, and I think when I fully realized how being a perfectionist can kind of paralyze a person, I kind of realized that about myself when I was in my life coach training. And I love the analogy that the teacher gave that did our training. And she said that if there's a lion tamer, right? She asked if anybody in the class knew how a lion tamer tames a lion. And I mean, there were some guesses, but nobody really knew. And she said that it's actually with like a little footstool that has 4 legs. And what the lion tamer does is pick up the footstool so the legs are facing the lion. And because there's 4 different legs, the lion doesn't know which one to go after. And it becomes so overwhelmed that it just shuts down and lies down and doesn't do anything. And that's how the lion's tamed. And in the same way, when a person gets really overwhelmed and has so much going on at once, they don't really know how to handle it all and they just shut down and end up not doing anything at all. And that could happen a lot with perfectionists because there's so much they want to do, but they want to do it so thoroughly and so perfectly that they get overwhelmed by the idea of it all and they end up not doing anything. And so perfectionists and overwhelm kind of go together. And I also, as I was thinking about this topic, was reminded of when I was in my MBA program and I met my husband there. And it was around exam time, I think, and I was hugely stressed out about everything I had to do. And my husband, Ben, who was my boyfriend at the time, we met in our MBA class, but he said to me, he said, it doesn't matter what you have going on, you're always overwhelmed no matter what it is. And that comment, I think, is the truest thing anybody has ever said to me and noticed about me, and it like hit me in the face. And I think about that often because even now, like I left the corporate world and I mean I'm home with 3 kids and I'm working on a business, but I could kind of do things at my own pace. I'm still overwhelmed all the time, and he is totally right. It doesn't matter what I'm doing or what it is. I have this perfectionist mentality and I tend to always be overwhelmed. And so I want to talk a little bit today about how to get past that overwhelm and that perfectionism. And perfectionism can be good to a degree because when you want to do a good job, I mean that can help, right? Instead of being kind of like a lazy, just somebody who doesn't care, but only to a degree. So it's kind of finding a healthy balance between being a perfectionism and kind of letting things go And it's really all about taking action, which again is what we're talking about in April this month too, is taking courageous action. So, and perfectionism can actually be tied to anxiety and depression, because when you have all these ambitions and all these things you want to do, but then you get in your own way and you end up not accomplishing anything, that could be really detrimental, and that can really do a number on a person mentally. So I am by no means recovered, I guess, from my perfectionism, but I have, read quite a bit on the topic recently, and I've, been working on myself as well. I kind of coach myself as I am coaching others too. So a couple points I want to make about moving past perfectionism, or at least kind of putting it in check, is the first point I want to make is that often when we think of the things we have to do, we overcomplicate them in our minds, and we think they're going to take a lot longer than they actually do. I know myself, I'm surprised all the time when I have like all these things in my head I want to do, and then when I start doing them, I am able to, at least most of the time, just kind of bang through them a lot faster than I kind of imagined in my head. It's really not as much effort or not as big of a deal as I had imagined. So that's the first thing to keep in mind if you are also a perfectionist like me. And the second thing is really all about taking action. So that is really the way to move forward. And it's a good thing to prioritize what you want to achieve. I know myself, like I tend to just make lists and make sure I have everything on my list that I need to do. And I could spend forever just on lists, and I never actually get to action. So what I would suggest is having 1 or 2 priorities for the day and getting those knocked out first thing in your day. And then once those are knocked down, then kind of assess, okay, what else do I need to do? Then maybe create the list for something else. But you kind of know in your head already what the big things are for the day without having to make a list or anything. So get the 1 or 2 most important things out of the way first, and then maybe make your list, see what you have to do. And in that way, at least you're taking action. And I would always say do your most important actions early in the day. Otherwise, they'll never be done. And it's even better if the night before you make a little list of your couple priorities that you're going to knock out first thing as early as possible the next day. So that's how you could get some action going. And by doing that, you're focusing just on 1, maybe 2 things at a time, because perfectionists tend to try to do it all and try to do it all at once and then never finish anything. So set your priorities and focus on 1 or 2 important things each day, and nothing else until those are completed. And that will help focus a little bit. The third thing I would say is when you're doing your couple priorities for the day, to set an amount of time that you're going to spend on it. So, for example, I know today I want to get my bathrooms cleaned and the bedrooms cleaned in my house, because I haven't really done much cleaning since the baby was born, and I really need to get it cleaned. So that is my priority before anything else today. But what I've decided is that I'm going to give myself no more than 2 hours to get that done. And because especially cleaning is one of those things that you'll fill the amount of time you have to do it. So if you have 2 hours, it will take 2 hours. If you have 4 hours, it could take 4 hours, because it's never like really done. So, and that goes with a lot of tasks, work-related tasks, house-related tasks. So give yourself a set amount of time, and then be willing to be satisfied with what you've achieved in that set amount of time, and be able to call it done in that time. So so I've learned that done is better than perfect. So sometimes we just have to be happy with good enough. And most of the time, almost all the time, I would say good enough is really good enough. And I've learned over time too that giving like 80% a lot of the time, and that's really hard, I know, for like a type A perfectionist kind of person like me, but giving 80% is usually enough. And especially when I was working in the corporate world, I learned that the hard way because I would just bust my butt getting stuff done and just go overboard trying to make everything perfect. And then I would go into a meeting and they would never even get to what I prepared. Nobody would ever look at it. Or they would decide in the meeting, oh no, we don't want that anymore. We want you to do something else instead. And so I learned, at least the first time around, do 80%. And then if you need to make it better after that, if it's going to stick, make it better instead of wasting all this time on something that's not even used or important in the end. So that goes with work-related tasks, with the house. I mean, if your house is clean 80%, who cares? That's a lot better than most people. And if you're a perfectionist and ambitious and kind of an overachiever by nature, I guarantee probably your 80% is a lot better than most people's 100% effort. So set a time limit for your tasks, and when that time is up, be willing to call it and say that the task is completed good enough. I mean, if you have to go back at a later point and kind of tweak it or revise, fine, but really try to be happy with what you've achieved at once the time is up. So then you can move on to the next thing and not overanalyze, over-criticize, and rework and drive yourself crazy. That's probably the number one thing I found that has helped me. And I've started working in chunks of time too when I work on my business of like 90 minutes. And then, I'll take a break. But I find I could get a lot of tasks done in 90 minutes, and it helps to know, like, okay, I'm just working this 90 minutes. I'm going to get these things done, and that will be good enough for now. Sorry, just looking at my notes. So, and then the last thing I wanted to mention is that don't be afraid to say no to people, because perfectionists also tend to want to please everybody else, right? And you don't have to please everybody else all the time. So learn to say no to the things that you don't really want to do, the commitments you don't really want to make, so you have more time to focus on your priorities and the things that are most important, because that will help with that whole lion tamer thing too, when you have less going on and less overwhelm, to really just focus on those things that matter. And also accept help when people offer to help you with things, or delegate. I know the type A perfectionists, again, and I'm a Virgo, and they're the biggest perfectionists out there if you follow the zodiac or kind of believe in that. But so I know this personally, but perfectionists have a really hard time accepting help from people, and they want to do everything themselves, and it's just not possible. So say no to commitments and people when you don't want to make those commitments, and accept help when it's offered, and learn to delegate a little bit more. And I think if you do those things, prioritize 1 or 2 actions at a time, take those actions, set a limited amount of time to work on them, so you're kind of in that good enough mentality and just getting things done and accepting that done is better than perfect. And I think you'll see, as you start taking action and moving, that things actually, like I said in my first point, go a lot quicker than we make them out to be in our heads, and things tend to all work out in the end. So the big thing is to not be the lion with the stool and get overwhelmed and shut down, but keep moving forward, keep taking action, and admit that you're a perfectionist, because if you're aware of it, that will help you work on it, and not try to let go of that completely, right? You are who you are, but it's about finding that balance between perfectionism, some surrender, and being happy with things how they are at a point, and just taking action and moving forward. And I think that will help a lot. I've found that that's all been a big help to me. So I would love to hear in the comments below this video, if you're a perfectionist, what you have done to overcome your perfectionism, and any other comments you might have about this video. And I would be happy if you shared this with your friends, and any friends that are kind of confessed perfectionists as well. And as always, if you have any questions about this video, my business, or my coaching, please feel free to email me at any time at tara@thebusinessofbalance.com. And perfectionism is a big one that we work on in coaching. So if you would like more help overcoming perfectionism, definitely reach out to me and learn more about how coaching can help with that. So sorry, the camera's been a little bit shaky. I have a baby in this carrier that I'm wearing here, and I'm glad she's stayed asleep through this video. So I hope that everybody has a great weekend, and I'll talk with you next week. Bye.